When Anna Martinez thought hiring someone to fix her air conditioning would be the most mundane part of her Tuesday. She had no idea that a broken cooling system would ignite the most passionate heat of her life. It wouldn't have anything to do with the temperature. The silk Armani dress that usually made her feel invincible now clung to her skin, like a second layer of humiliation as sweat beaded along her hairline during the most important video conference of her career. Anna desperately waved a folder in front of her face, praying the camera angle hid her desperation, while she pitched the Morrison account to 3 stone-faced executives whose combined net worth could buy small countries. Our integrated marketing approach will increase brand visibility by 47%. Anna managed, her voice steady, despite feeling like she was melting into her Italian leather chair. The penthouse that usually showcased her success now felt like a furnace, the floor-to-ceiling windows turning her corner office into a greenhouse. Her finger hovered over the mute button as she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside her home office. The building's maintenance had promised to send someone, but she'd expected some elderly handyman. Not the conference room door opened, and Anna's carefully rehearsed presentation died in her throat. 6 feet of pure masculine competence filled her doorway, tool belt slung low on narrow hips, work shirts stretching across shoulders that belonged in a fitness magazine rather than her temperature-controlled world of corporate meetings. Dark skin glistened with a light sheen of perspiration that somehow made him look like he'd stepped out of her most secret fantasies, while she probably looked like she was having a heat stroke. "Ma'am, I'm Jack Davis from Premier HVAC." His voice carried the kind of warm authority that made her stomach flip in ways that had nothing to do with the stifling heat. "Got a call about emergency air conditioning repair." Anna's brain short-circuited somewhere between the way his eyes assessed her situation with professional concern and how his presence seemed to fill the entire room with an energy that made the broken air conditioning feel irrelevant. 3 client faces stared at her from the computer screen, waiting for her to continue the presentation that would determine her promotion, while the man who was supposed to fix her cooling system instead made every nerve ending in her body catch fire. "Yes," she whispered, forgetting to mute the call as attraction hit her like a physical force. "Please, I desperately need you to." She caught herself, heat flooding her cheeks that had nothing to do with the temperature. "I need you to fix this immediately." Jack's eyes met hers with an intensity that suggested he understood exactly what was broken, and it wasn't just her air conditioning. Anna tried to focus on her laptop screen as Jack moved through her penthouse with the methodical precision of someone who understood systems far more complex than she'd imagined. The emergency presentation to the Morrison Group had been postponed until her apartment returned to livable temperatures. But watching Jack work was proving infinitely more distracting than any broken air conditioning unit. "Your system's more complicated than most residential setups," Jack said, his voice carrying from the utility closet where he'd been examining ductwork for the past 20 minutes. "Looks like whoever installed this tried to integrate smart home controls with an older HVAC system. It's impressive, but ... but what?" Anna called out, abandoning any pretense of productivity. She found herself gravitating toward wherever Jack was working, drawn by a combination of genuine curiosity and something far more dangerous. Jack emerged from the closet, wiping his hands on a cloth that emphasized the capable strength in his fingers. "I need to access the main unit behind your bedroom wall. It's going to require some tight maneuvering, and I'll need an extra pair of hands." The word bedroom hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither acknowledged directly. Anna's throat felt dry despite the humidity that had invaded her usually pristine living space. "Of course," she managed, following him into the master suite where her king-size bed suddenly seemed to dominate the room in ways she'd never noticed before. Jack had already moved a heavy dresser aside, revealing an access panel she hadn't known existed. "I need you to hold the diagnostic light steady while I check the connections." he explained, handing her a small but surprisingly heavy flashlight. "The space is tight, so you'll need to get close." Anna positioned herself as directed, acutely. Aware that close meant her shoulder pressed against Jack's back as he leaned into the confined space behind her wall. The scent of his cologne mixed with honest work and something indefinably masculine made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with the stifling heat. "Can you angle the light down about 2 inches?" Jack's voice was slightly strained, though whether from the awkward position or their proximity, Anna couldn't tell. She adjusted the beam, her hand brushing his wrist in the process. The brief contact sent electricity shooting up her arm, and she heard Jack's breath catch almost imperceptibly. "Perfect," he said quietly, but when he glanced back at her, Anna realized he wasn't talking about the lighting anymore. The confined space seemed to shrink around them, professional necessity transforming into something far more intimate as Anna discovered that some kinds of heat had nothing to do with broken cooling systems. Anna's phone buzzed with the aggressive persistence of a crisis that wouldn't wait for her air conditioning to be fixed. She'd barely made it to her downtown office when Jessica burst through her door, tablet clutched against her chest like armor. "We have a Category 5 disaster," Jessica announced. Her usually perfect composure cracked around the edges.
Henderson.
Foods just posted something on their corporate Instagram that's exploding across every platform. Anna's stomach dropped as she took the tablet, her mind still replaying the way Jack's hand had felt against hers just hours earlier. The intimate memory evaporated instantly when she saw the post that had already accumulated 15,000 angry comments and climbing. Henderson Foods had shared a motivational image featuring their CEO alongside text that read, "Success comes from hard work and family values, not government handouts. Some people understand the value of earning their place." #RealAmerica #traditional values. The accompanying photo showed Henderson's lily-white executive team at their country club, champagne glasses raised in celebration. The comments section had become a battlefield of racial tensions and corporate accountability demands that made Anna's chest tighten with recognition. "The social media team is in full panic mode," Jessica continued, pacing Anna's office with manic energy. "Twitter's calling for boycotts. Their stock price dropped 3% in the first hour, and apparently someone leaked this to major news outlets." Anna stared at the screen, seeing Henderson's casual bigotry with startling clarity for the first time. Yesterday, she might have crafted a careful corporate response about misunderstandings and clarifying intentions. Today, with Jack's quiet dignity still fresh in her memory, the coded language felt like poison. "What's our recommendation?" Jessica asked, consulting her phone as notifications continued flooding in. "Henderson wants us to issue a statement about how the post was taken out of context and emphasize their commitment to diversity." The words stuck in Anna's throat. She thought about Jack's competence, his respectful professionalism despite her obvious attraction, the way he'd treated her like an equal partner rather than a client to be managed. The contrast between his authentic character and Henderson's privileged dismissiveness felt stark and ugly. "Anna." Jessica's voice carried concern. "The longer we wait, the worse this gets. Henderson's breathing down our necks for damage control." Anna looked up from the tablet, seeing her colleague's expectant face and realizing she was standing at a crossroads she'd never recognized before. The corporate playbook demanded she protect the client at all costs, but something fundamental had shifted in her perspective over the past 24 hours. "Schedule an emergency meeting," Anna said quietly, her mind racing toward a solution that felt both terrifying and necessary. "We need to discuss more than just damage control." The emergency call came at 11:30 p.m., dragging Anna from restless sleep where dreams of heated glances and strong hands had been interrupted by the oppressive reality of her penthouse turning into a furnace again. The repaired system had lasted exactly 18 hours before surrendering to the relentless heat wave that gripped the city like a fever. Anna stumbled toward the door in the silk camisole and matching shorts she'd worn to bed, too desperate for relief to consider propriety. Sweat already beaded along her collarbone despite the late hour, and her hair clung to her neck in damp tendrils that made her feel exposed in ways that had nothing to do with her minimal clothing. The knock came, firm and familiar, and Anna's pulse quickened for reasons beyond the stifling heat. She opened the door without checking the peephole. Knowing instinctively who would be standing there, Jack filled her doorway like a promise of salvation. Tool bag in hand and concern etched across features that looked even more compelling in the dim hallway lighting. His eyes swept over her face with professional assessment before dropping involuntarily to take in her state of undress. And Anna watched his jaw tighten with visible effort. Ms. Martinez, his voice carried that same warm authority, but now it held an edge of strain that made her stomach flutter. I got your emergency call. The system failed again. Anna nodded, hyper-aware of how the silk camisole clung to her damp skin, how the thin material left little to imagination. She should excuse herself to change, should maintain some semblance of professional distance, but the heat made rational thought impossible. Please, she whispered, stepping aside to let him enter. I can't take another night like this. Jack moved past her with careful precision, maintaining distance that felt both respectful and torturous. The scent of his cologne mixed with night air made her pulse race as she closed the door behind them, sealing them into the intimate cocoon of her overheated apartment. I'll need to check the main unit again, Jack said, his voice carefully controlled. As he avoided looking directly at her, the connections we worked on earlier might have loosened. Anna followed him toward the bedroom. Watching the way his shoulders moved beneath his work shirt, noting how he kept his eyes focused straight ahead, despite the magnetic pull she felt drawing them together. The professional distance he maintained only intensified her awareness of what lay beneath it. Jack, she said softly as they reached her bedroom doorway, the word carrying more weight than simple acknowledgement. He turned to face her, and Anna saw her own desire reflected in his dark eyes before he carefully looked away. The space between them hummed with unspoken possibilities that had nothing to do with air conditioning repair. The riverside country club's mahogany-paneled dining room felt suffocating in ways that had nothing to do with temperature, as Anna sat across from her parents, picking at salmon that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. The monthly family dinner had become a ritual she endured rather than enjoyed. But tonight felt different, weighted with secrets that made her hyper-aware of the privilege surrounding her like expensive perfume. You look tired, Mia, her mother observed, diamond tennis bracelet catching the chandelier light as she gestured with her wineglass. Are you getting enough sleep in that penthouse? Sometimes I worry the city stress is too much. Anna's father nodded approvingly from behind. His financial newspaper? Your mother's right. Maybe it's time to consider that position at the firm in Westchester. Cleaner air, better neighborhood, more suitable social circles. The word suitable landed with calculated precision, and Anna felt something rebellious stir in her chest. She thought of Jack's genuine laugh, his respectful competence, the way he'd looked at her with desire tempered by integrity just hours earlier. Actually, I've been meeting some interesting people lately, Anna said carefully, testing the waters. My HVAC technician, Jack, has been incredibly professional and knowledgeable. He's starting his own green energy company. The silence that followed felt arctic despite the warm evening. Her mother's wineglass paused halfway to her lips while her father's newspaper rustled with sudden tension. You're what? Her mother's voice carried the kind of horror usually reserved for natural disasters. HVAC technician, Anna repeated, maintaining steady eye contact despite the mounting pressure. He repairs air conditioning systems. very skilled at what he does. Ana Elena Martinez, her father's voice carried the full weight of generational disappointment. Please tell me you're not developing inappropriate feelings for the help. The phrase "the help" hit Ana like a slap, revealing the ugly truth beneath her family's polished surface. She looked around the dining room filled with people who looked exactly like her parents, wealthy, insulated, casually dismissive of anyone who worked with their hands rather than their inherited connections. His name is Jack Davis, and he's a business owner, Ana said, her voice gaining strength with each word. There's nothing inappropriate about recognizing someone's competence and character. Her mother leaned forward with the predatory focus of someone scenting scandal. Character. Darling, these people are very good at presenting themselves well. But you have to think about your reputation, your future. What would the Morrison Group think if they knew you were socializing with service workers? Ana's chest tightened as she realized her parents saw Jack exactly the way Henderson Foods viewed people like him, as lesser, as threats to their carefully constructed world of privilege and techny and exclusion. The fight was just beginning. Ana stood at the edge of Jack's family backyard, feeling like an anthropologist who'd stumbled into a foreign culture. Her designer sundress and carefully applied makeup making her feel conspicuous among the easy laughter and genuine warmth that filled the space. The invitation had come spontaneously when Jack finished her third emergency repair, his smile softening the professional distance he'd been maintaining. "You sure about this?" Jack had asked, studying her face with concern. "My family's not exactly country club material." Now, surrounded by the rich scent of barbecue and the sound of children playing while adults shared stories over beer bottles instead of wine glasses, Ana realized how sterile her usual social gatherings felt by comparison. Jack, a woman who could only be his sister, approached with arms wide, her natural hair crowned with colorful head wrap and smile radiant with unguarded affection. "So, this is the famous Ana. Girl, you are even more beautiful than this fool described." Heat crept up Ana's neck as Jack's protective instincts kicked in. "Easy, Maya. Don't scare her off before she's had some of Uncle Vernon's ribs." Maya laughed, the sound rich and infectious. "Baby, anyone brave enough to deal with Jack's stubborn behind can handle a little family teasing. Come on, let me introduce you to the chaos." Ana found herself swept into conversations that flowed like music, where people asked about her work with genuine curiosity rather than calculating what connections she might offer. Jack's nephew showed her his science project with the same pride her colleagues reserved for seven-figure accounts, while his grandmother pressed a plate of food into her hands with maternal authority that brooked no argument. "You're not eating." "Enough," the elderly woman declared, fixing Ana with eyes that held decades of wisdom. "That corporate world probably has you surviving on salads and stress. Real food builds real strength." Ana accepted the loaded plate, overwhelmed by the casual intimacy of being cared for without agenda. At the country club, every gesture carried calculation, every conversation a potential transaction. Here, kindness seemed to flow as naturally as breathing. "You okay?" Jack appeared at her elbow, his hand briefly touching her back with protective concern. "I know this is probably different from what you're used to." Ana looked around at faces that reflected genuine happiness, at relationships built on love rather than status, at Jack's place within a community that celebrated rather than merely tolerated each other. The contrast to her parents, horrified reaction just days earlier, felt stark and revealing. "It's beautiful," she whispered, meaning far more than the backyard gathering. She was seeing Jack's world, and it made her question everything about her own. The Grandview Resort's conference room felt like a sauna disguised as executive paradise, with Ana's colleagues wilting in their designer suits while she attempted to salvage the Morrison Group presentation for the third time. The luxury mountain retreat's state-of-the-art climate control had failed spectacularly. turning their strategic planning weekend into an endurance test that was rapidly destroying carefully styled hair and expensive makeup. "This is unacceptable," Richard Sterling muttered, loosening his silk tie as sweat beaded along his hairline. "How are we supposed to impress clients when we can't even maintain basic comfort?" Anna dabbed at her forehead with tissues that were becoming increasingly inadequate, her mind automatically calculating the disaster this would be for the firm's reputation. The Morrison Group executives were due to arrive in 2 hours for the final presentation that would determine the largest account of her career. Resort management called in an emergency repair service. Jessica announced from across the room where she'd been coordinating with hotel staff. "Someone should be here within the hour." Anna nodded distractedly, reviewing her notes while trying to ignore the growing murmurs of discontent from colleagues who weren't accustomed to discomfort of any kind. The irony of their situation wasn't lost on her, surrounded by luxury they couldn't enjoy, dependent on someone else's expertise to restore their sense of control. The conference room doors opened with decisive authority, and Anna's carefully constructed professional composure shattered like glass. Jack Davis stepped into the room with his tool bag and confident competence, scanning the space with professional assessment before his eyes found hers across the crowded conference table. The moment of recognition hit them both like an electric shock, and Anna felt every carefully maintained boundary between her two worlds collapse in an instant. "Emergency HVAC repair," Jack announced to the room, his voice carrying the same warm authority that had been haunting her dreams, though now it felt impossibly surreal in this corporate setting. Anna watched her colleagues' faces shift from relief to curiosity as they took in Jack's presence, his obvious competence, his respectful professionalism, the way he commanded attention without demanding it. She saw Jessica's eyebrows raise with interest, Richard's calculating assessment, and the moment when several people began connecting dots she'd thought were safely hidden. "Anna," Richard's voice carried sharp curiosity, "didn't you mention having HVAC issues recently? Same company?" Every eye in the room turned toward her, waiting for confirmation or denial, while Jack maintained professional distance that somehow felt more intimate than any touch. Anna realized she was standing at the crossroads her parents had warned her about, with her career and her heart balanced on opposite sides of a choice she could no longer avoid. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications and impossible decisions. Anna's hands trembled as she unlocked her penthouse door, the corporate retreat disaster still burning through her veins like poison. She'd managed professional smiles and deflective answers for the rest of the afternoon, but the knowing looks from her colleagues had stripped away every carefully constructed barrier she'd built around her feelings for Jack. He followed her inside, without invitation, his presence filling her space with the same magnetic energy that had made her conference room feel electric despite the broken air conditioning. The professional distance he'd maintained at the resort had evaporated the moment they were alone, replaced by something raw and desperate that made the air between them shimmer with possibility. Anna Jack's voice carried concern mixed with desire that made her pulse race. "What happened back there? They know," she whispered, turning to face him with eyes that held weeks of suppressed longing. "They all know, and I don't care anymore." The admission shattered something fundamental inside her chest. Years of careful control dissolving under the weight of truth she could no longer deny. Jack's eyes darkened as he moved closer, his hands framing her face with reverent intensity that made her breath catch. "You sure about this?" he asked softly, thumb tracing her cheekbone with gentle precision. "Once we cross this line, there's no going back to professional distance." Instead of answering, Anna rose on her toes and claimed his mouth with desperate hunger that spoke of sleepless nights and stolen glances and magnetic attraction that had been building since their first charged encounter. Jack responded with passionate intensity that made her forget every reason she'd been fighting this connection. His hands tangled in her hair while she pulled him closer, surrendering to the intoxicating realization that this felt more real than anything in her perfectly constructed corporate life. The silk blouse that had made her feel powerful in boardrooms became an obstacle as Jack's skilled fingers found the buttons. His mouth trailing fire down her throat to places that made rational thought impossible. "I've wanted this since the moment I saw you," Anna gasped against his lips, her admission raw with vulnerability that she'd never allowed herself to feel. "I've wanted you." Jack's response was to lift her against him with possessive strength that made her feel precious and desired in ways no amount of professional success had ever provided. As he carried her toward the bedroom where their attraction had first ignited, Anna realized she was finally choosing passion over propriety, authentic connection over artificial safety. The consequences would come tomorrow, but tonight belonged to the heat they could no longer resist. The Sterling and Associates boardroom felt like a tribunal as Anna sat at the polished mahogany table, facing the assembled jury of senior partners and client representatives who would determine her professional fate. The morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows seemed to illuminate her isolation rather than provide warmth, while whispered conversations from the corporate retreat had crystallized into formal accusations overnight. The Morrison Group has expressed serious concerns about professionalism standards. CEO Richard Sterling began, his silver pen clicking against legal pads with mechanical precision. Specifically, your apparent personal relationship with service contractors during company events. Anna's spine straightened as she met the disapproving gazes around the table. Henderson Foods representative sat smugly beside the Morrison Group executives, their combined presence representing millions in potential lost revenue. If she couldn't navigate this corporate minefield with surgical precision, Mr. Davis provided emergency repair services that saved our presentation. Anna replied carefully, her voice carrying the authority she'd cultivated through years of high-stakes negotiations. His professionalism was exemplary under difficult circumstances. "That's not what we're discussing," Margaret Chen from Henderson Foods interjected with predatory satisfaction. "We're concerned about the appearance of impropriety. Our brands require associates who understand appropriate boundaries." The coded language hit Anna like ice water, but instead of defensive panic, she felt something crystallize in her chest as strategic clarity born from weeks of watching prejudice masquerade as professional concern. She thought of Jack's competence, his dignity, the authentic community she'd witnessed at his family gathering. "Actually," Anna said, opening the presentation folder she'd prepared during her sleepless night, "I'd like to propose something that addresses your concerns while positioning our firms as industry leaders." The room fell silent as Anna stood, activating the wall screen with practiced confidence. Her presentation materialized with the kind of polished professionalism that had built her career. Market research shows that 73% of consumers actively support businesses with demonstrated diversity commitments. Anna began, her voice gaining strength with each statistic. "I'm proposing the Morrison-Henderson Diversity Excellence Initiative partnership program that showcases our commitment to inclusive business practices while generating measurable ROI." She clicked to the next slide, revealing partnership opportunities with minority-owned businesses, including green energy companies that could reduce operational costs while improving public perception. Instead of seeing diversity as a liability, Anna continued, meeting each skeptical gaze with unwavering confidence. "We position ourselves as forward-thinking leaders, who understand that authentic inclusion drives both social impact and bottom line." Results, the silence that followed, felt different, calculating rather than condemning. Anna realized she'd just turned her personal relationship into a business opportunity that her clients couldn't afford to ignore. The real battle was just beginning. Anna found Jack's workshop, tucked away in an industrial district that felt worlds. Apart from her corporate tower, the scent of metal and honest work replacing the sterile perfection of boardrooms. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across equipment that spoke of ambition and expertise, while blueprints covered every available surface like evidence of dreams taking tangible form. "Didn't expect to see you here," Jack said, looking up from a complex schematic spread across his workbench. His surprise carried warmth despite the professional distance he'd been maintaining since the corporate retreat disaster. "Your presentation today was impressive," a voice called from the back of the workshop, and Anna turned to see a woman emerging from behind a partially assembled unit. "I'm Carmen Rodriguez, Jack's business partner. It's been telling me about your diversity initiative." Anna felt her corporate instincts sharpen as she assessed this unexpected player in Jack's world. Carmen moved with the confidence of someone who understood both technical systems and business strategy, her handshake firm and direct. "Jack mentioned he's expanding his operations," Anna said carefully, studying the blueprints that revealed sophisticated green energy integration systems far more complex than simple HVAC repair. "Not expanding," Jack corrected, his eyes meeting hers with intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Starting fresh. Carmen and I have been developing eco-friendly climate control systems that reduce energy consumption by 40% while improving air quality." Anna's mind raced as she absorbed the implications. The boards that had questioned her judgment hours earlier would find it much harder to dismiss a strategic partnership with an innovative green energy company, especially one that could deliver measurable cost savings. "We have the technology and expertise," Carmen continued, spreading out financial projections that showed impressive potential returns. "What we need is the kind of corporate connections and strategic marketing that can get us past the old boys network that controls most commercial contracts. You need an investor with industry credibility," Anna realized, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. "Someone who understands both worlds." Jack's smile was slow, transformative. "The thought had occurred to us, but after what happened at the retreat, I wasn't sure you'd want to complicate your professional life any further." Anna looked around the workshop, filled with evidence of innovation and ambition, thinking of the diversity initiative she'd proposed just hours earlier. Her parents' horrified warnings about inappropriate relationships suddenly seemed laughably small compared to the business opportunity spreading out before her. "What if we didn't have to choose between personal and professional?" Anna asked, her voice carrying the excitement of someone discovering an entirely new possibility. "What if we could build something together that's bigger than both?" The workshop hummed with potential that had nothing to do with electrical systems and everything to do with two worlds finding common ground. The Riverside Country Club's ballroom sparkled with champagne and diamonds as Anna's parents celebrated 30 years of marriage surrounded by the social elite who had shaped her understanding of success since childhood. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over faces that represented old money, political connections, and the kind of inherited privilege that had always felt like both blessing and prison. Anna stood at the ballroom entrance with Jack beside her, his presence transforming the familiar space into foreign territory. He wore a tailored navy suit that emphasized his commanding presence while fitting seamlessly among the formally dressed guests. Though Anna could feel the subtle tension in his shoulders as curious eyes tracked their arrival. "You sure about this?" Jack asked quietly, his hand finding hers with supportive strength that steadied her racing pulse. "I've never been more sure of anything," Anna replied, drawing confidence from the business proposal tucked in her clutch and the man whose integrity had challenged everything she thought she knew about worthiness and value her mother spotted. Them first, champagne flute freezing halfway to her lips as recognition dawned across features that had been carefully arranged for social performance. Anna watched the moment her parents realized she hadn't come alone, hadn't come apologetic, hadn't come seeking their approval for choices she'd already made. "Anna, darling," her father approached with political smile that didn't reach his eyes, What a lovely surprise. And you brought a ... friend? The pause before friend carried the weight of assumptions and disapproval. But Anna had spent weeks preparing for this moment. She linked her arm through Jack's with deliberate intimacy that made her position unmistakably clear. I'd like you to meet Jack Davis, my business partner and the man I love, Anna announced, her voice carrying across nearby conversations with confident authority. We're launching a green energy initiative that's already attracted interest from the Morrison Group and Henderson Foods. The silence that followed felt electric as Anna's carefully chosen words reframed the narrative her parents had been constructing. She wasn't their naive daughter who'd been seduced by inappropriate attraction. She was a successful executive who'd identified a profitable opportunity and claimed it. Business partner. Her mother repeated, confusion replacing horror. As the implications registered, Anna smiled with the satisfaction of someone who'd turned personal scandal into professional triumph. Jack's company specializes in eco-friendly climate control systems. We're projecting 40% cost reductions, with measurable environmental impact. Several major corporations are already requesting presentations. She watched her parents' faces as social calculation warred with predetermined prejudice. Knowing that money and success spoke languages they understood better than love or authenticity. The real test was just beginning. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for Davis Martinez Green Systems drew a crowd that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier, when Anna had been sweating through corporate presentations and Jack had been just another service technician in her carefully controlled world. Now, watching him address reporters and potential clients with confident expertise, Anna felt the satisfaction of someone who'd discovered that the best business decisions came from following both heart and mind. Projected energy savings of 43% with improved air quality metrics, Jack explained to the assembled crowd. His presentation polished but authentic in ways that corporate speak never achieved. The late afternoon sun caught the strong line of his jaw as he gestured toward their innovative display units, and Anna found herself remembering how those same capable hands had first touched her in the confined space behind her bedroom wall. Anna stood beside him as equal partner, her emerald silk dress chosen specifically to complement the rich tone of his skin when they posed for photographs. Her marketing expertise had transformed his technical innovations into a business model that had attracted clients ranging from the Morrison Group to her parents' country club. But right now, all she could think about was how his proximity made her pulse race with the same intensity as their first charged encounter. Ms. Martinez, a reporter, called out, "How did this partnership develop? It's unusual to see such successful collaboration between different industry sectors." Anna's smile carried the confidence of someone who'd learned to rewrite rules rather than simply follow them. The best innovations come from combining different perspectives and expertise. Jack's technical brilliance paired with strategic marketing creates solutions that neither of us could achieve alone. She felt Jack's gaze on her profile, warming her skin in ways that had nothing to do with the summer heat. The formal presentation concluded with applause and networking conversations that felt genuine rather than transactional. Anna watched her former colleagues from Sterling and Associates shake hands with Jack's family members, boundaries between their worlds dissolving into something richer and more complex. Even her parents had attended. Their initial horror transformed into grudging respect for the profitable empire their daughter had helped build. As the crowd began to thin, Jack's hand found the small of her back with possessive familiarity that made her breath catch. 6 months of partnership had only intensified the magnetic attraction that had started with a broken air conditioning unit and desperate phone call. "You know what I love most about this?" Jack murmured against her ear as they watched the last reporters pack their equipment, his breath sending shivers down her spine that made her grateful for the silk dress's flowing fabric. "The profit margins," Kana teased, though her pulse quickened at his proximity. and the way his fingers traced subtle patterns against her back. "The fact that we didn't have to choose," Jack replied, his voice carrying the rough edge that never failed to make her stomach flutter with anticipation. "We found a way to have everything: successful careers, authentic love, families who respect what we've built together." Anna turned in his arms, hyper-aware of how the empty showroom suddenly felt intimate despite its commercial purpose. The same space that had just hosted their professional triumph now hummed with personal electricity that made her remember exactly why she'd risked everything for this man. "Take me home," she whispered, her fingers finding the silk of his tie and pulling him closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his chest. "I want to celebrate properly." Jack's smile was pure invitation, professional success transforming into personal triumph that promised to burn even hotter than any broken cooling system ever could.